So for those of you that didn't catch it, out of nowhere, and I mean out of fucking nowhere, like a Randy Orton RKO, Siuhy, one of the most hotly contested, desired IGLs, talked about having maybe, got the potential to join FaZe and G2, and has done really well, both at an academy level and a senior level with Mouz. He's out. He's gone. He has been cut, and nobody had it coming. Nobody saw that part of it coming. He was just gone, and it was like, why? Why did this happen? And we're kind of piecing it together, because one of the things that you would say about Mouz is they're a well-drilled team. One of the best things is that they are a well-drilled team, that they have good protocols, good systems, obviously talented young players as well, which certainly helps, but you would never have thought in a million years Siuhy would be on the chopping block, not unless he was to leave Mouz because he had an opportunity to join a bigger organisation, like Carrigan was standing down, or G2 had had enough of snacks, or whatever it might be. I'll just say, before we even start breaking down the various bits and pieces of the story, because it goes to like weird places, I'll just say right out the gate, if G2 haven't already called Siuhy, or Mouz, I guess he's still under contract, he is theoretically benched, you're mad. Because I'll say this right now. I know you might want to give this roster a chance, but there is no way, shape, or form Siuhy wouldn't come in and do better than Snacks with the roster you've got over at G2. It's 100% a foregone conclusion that would be true. And while maybe him and Taz might not have the same level of vibes that Snacks and Taz do, because obviously they've played together in the past, absolutely, that's irrelevant. What you would gain from that relationship being positive is just irrelevant. This is one of the, as I said, one of the most hotly contested IGL properties out there, and will eventually be on a G2, be on a FaZe. You may as well step it up and get him now. I mean, that's my opinion. There could even be a road back for him being on Mouz. You've got to strike while the iron's very much hot here. But so anyway, let's take a look at the statement that Mouz put out. Here it is. It was just on Twitter. We are announcing updates to our Counter-Strike roster effective immediately. Siuhy will be stepping into an active role as a result of differing visions for the team's direction. Ludwig Brolin has been appointed as the new in-game leader. Torji and Zerzhan will undertake expanded responsibilities within the team. And Zelex from Mouse NXT will serve as a stand-in for the upcoming IEM Katowice tournament. More on that in a moment. I mean, immediately you can see how this is like clearly come out of left field. First of all, it is an absolute giveaway if you're replacing someone like Siuhy, and in the statement replacing him, you have to say 3 people are effectively going to take over his collective responsibilities within the team. Like, you may as well just say, yeah, fuck it, this is a vibes move. And obviously, it's crazy. I mean, Brolin hasn't been an IGL before at any point in his career, and I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why he's the guy who's got the job out of everybody else on the team. He wouldn't even necessarily be a likely candidate for me based on his career and what I know. Certainly it seems to be that him, of all people, is the player that was having a career nightmare, got back to form on Mouse, under Siuhy's tutelage, of course, and now you're going to risk him losing his numbers, his production, while he fills in as an IGL. So I don't like that at all. I'll say that right out the gate. I don't like Brolin being the IGL at all. But what it reeks of is there's been some sort of heroic-esque power struggle. Nell, who's totally given up on getting his engagement bait from esports, he's moved on, and yet still does this incredibly, and was in the YouTube comments just a few days ago getting upset about something I didn't say. There's your journalist there. So whatever, he'll be coming to the celebrity You Speak Your Brains edition, where we're going to look at it's going to be all of the usual morons, but we're going to sprinkle in a few celebrities saying some crazy stuff there. So anyway, he said, it's very interesting to see how Mouse will evolve, but also as for Brolin as IGL, especially knowing that they were thinking about replacing him with Spinks 3 weeks ago, he better perform Otherwise, he'll probably be the next to go. Well, listen, Nell, it's great that you know these things. You could always share them with the general public instead of saying them after the fact. But the other thing about this is, well, no, he won't if by the next to go, you mean end of the year or earliest, like 6 months from now, when the season is kind of over, sure, that might be a possibility. I'd say chances of another roster move to Mouz are pretty slim right now, especially as we know they would have to bring in this Spinks move is like really deeply shocking for me because they're not an organization that likes to spend money, and I can only assume they've got him for a song, that some real incredible deal has been done here. We'll get to that in a moment. So Siuhy is out, and people were speculating about why that might be. And look, I'll just say right out the gate, it's a bad move. This is unequivocally a bad move. There's no way they're going to be able to fill Siuhy's boots, essentially, with any collection of callers, playbook, tacticians, mid-round callers. Spinks is certainly not going to do that when he comes into the roster. Brolan's got no experience. I don't think any of the guys have any experience. Yeah, this is like heroic ousting Cadian out of nowhere. This is like Ent getting rid of Alexi B out of nowhere. No good can come of that move. It's going to end up another entry in the esports chapter of you don't know what you have until it's gone. It's just as simple as that. And I just don't know where it's come from. I didn't know there was any tensions in the team. They'd always seemed like a team that had it together. Like, after all, they got Jimmy to re-sign. Jimmy could have been in, potentially some, Falcons or G2 or wherever else it might have been. Liquid, who knows? I'm sure he had his pick of the bunch. He chose to stay. And now I wonder what's going through his head. You've just signed another deal to work under the IGL. He did that ridiculous finish, just zero emotion. It is good to be here because we are a good bunch of friends and we are collected together. And I am very excited right now. This is excitement for a Finnish person. So, I'll work on the accent. But anyway, him re-signing and then losing Siuhy, he's got to be questioning. Like, look, if I wanted a clown car shit show, I could have been at fucking Falcons, couldn't I? You know what I mean? So, very, very weird. And if Brolan was meant to go, it makes me wonder what he's done. Stown-esque maneuvers with the team to get Siuhy out. Now, because Reddit is, particularly the CSGO subreddit, is becoming this, like, crazy vector for disinformation. Like, during Rostermania, a guy literally faked a Nell tweet, posted it, and then said, hey, let's discuss this fake tweet I edited, then deleted his account. And that was just on the front page. And nobody noticed. It was just there. It was like, oh, okay. Anyone want to check the tweet? This is the problem, by the way, with them having this rule about we don't link directly to tweets anymore because Twitter requires you to have an account. So we allow the posting of screenshots. Well, yeah, now we understand why that doesn't necessarily fix the problem, does it? But anyway, there's been all sorts of crazy bullshit. There's one, in fact, I'll just put it here because it was going to be in You Speak Your Brains, but, here's an example of one, right? An HLTV thread. Falcons 2026 What the Fuck League. According to RL, that's me, by the way. I'm so esports famous. I have my own abbreviation. I have my own initials. According to RL, Falcons will be Donk, Munacy, Nico, Ziwu, Simple, and Owner Pixel will be a coach for the fan base. Now, obviously, I've never said that. But people post this stuff because they say, oh, if Richard Lewis said it, it must be true. So more and more of this has been creeping in, by the way, just during this Rostermania. But anyway, so with that in mind, okay, a clip got posted onto Reddit, which I'm not going to play the clip because it doesn't really matter. I do believe it's in his native Polish. But somebody translated it and went to explain what it means. You can see the title was Siuhy mentioning some things regarding his time with Mouz. According to some Polish fans from Twitter and HLTV that translated, Siuhy mentions that the team doesn't even contact each other except for practices. They mute all notifications except for one who doesn't use his phone at all. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's crazy. So much for a great environment. Look at this. If Siuhy wants a great environment, Liquid is definitely the place for him. Oh yeah, Cadian found that out. Real good vibes there. If you upset upset the North American contingent. Now I can see why Jimmy wanted to stay in Mouz. This is a finished dream. On and on, speculation about Siuhy. Is Siuhy socially awkward? What is Siuhy bothering people? Oh, this is reminiscent of the Stewie 2K thing. On and on and on and on and on and on it goes, right? And you can go read that thread if you want to, but it's just that people are reacting to a clip that they don't even understand. They're reading the title and then just going along with what the title says. Now, Siuhy had to come out and say, oh, about that, right? That isn't what the clip is about. In fact, the clip is deceptively edited and out of context. Now, obviously, he could be lying, but I'm inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, look, lying about things is very much in vogue right now, isn't that right, Crad? But I'm going to give Siuhy the benefit of the doubt in this one, because obviously I'm only getting a second-hand translation. I don't speak Polish, and some of the phrases are certainly broad enough to be interpreted. So it says here, I would like to clarify the situation regarding a clip that was taken out of context and has been circulating on social media since yesterday. The clip was cut in such a way and at such time to manipulate the audience into thinking that it refers to my departure from Mouz. I want to make it clear this is completely untrue. In addition, the clip is from a stream from 9 days ago and refers to a completely different topic, my unbanning on Face It while playing matchmaking with friends. I don't see anything wrong with someone not using their phone in their free time, especially since my former teammates and I used to spend practically every day together. We had a really good atmosphere in the team. We enjoyed talking to each other on and off the server about anything in life. At the end of the day, they are like a second family to me. There was never a situation where I felt ignored or left out in our environment. I was, I am, and I will be on good terms with my friends. The surfacing clip is completely out of context and is not relevant to me being moved to the inactive roster. It was all said in an exaggerated, joking manner. Now, there's some little inconsistencies there. There's no need to say you were joking if you weren't talking about the thing they were claiming that you were talking about. But equally, having seen the literal, supposed, written translation, it's vague enough that you do get plausible deniability, let's say. So I'm all right with that. But also, let this just be a lesson to everybody, which no one will learn. You guys already know it because you watch me. The people who pick this up on YouTube, who knows what lunatics are going to stumble across it over on there. Well, look, the reality is this, that ultimately you can't trust all of these out-of-context clips, translations, etc., etc. You very often have to go to the horse's mouth, get the full clip, find where the clip's from, look at what's being said, either side of it, the context of it, because otherwise you're going to end up potentially harming players' reputations. Now, if the idea here is that Siuhy is somehow disruptive, then that sucks for him because he's trying to find a new team. And if the idea that's being proposed is Siuhy is in a team where all of his teammates are disruptive, then that's not great for them and anyone that might want to potentially join. So ultimately, what you're putting out there is great for your Reddit karma, but not great for the players involved. And so I would just say everyone has a responsibility to be accurate on this. You can't rely on fans to do that because everyone thinks karma is a real thing and they want Reddit points and attention. So ultimately, it's on the mods. The mods have got to look into that and sort of make a determination about whether or not it's accurate, because they certainly delete other misinformation, so why not this? So I do feel a little bit for Siuhy there. Anyway, we move on because the replacement was already announced, and as you've already seen, based on what we've got, it spinks. In fact, actually, just before we even get into that, I nearly forgot. Chad had a long tweet about this, and certainly worth taking into consideration. Sponge obviously hears things behind the scenes in the same way I do, probably more so. He's a lot more active, and as a former player, I imagine other players might go to him and ask questions and advice that they wouldn't necessarily ask of me. And he says here, the problem with the Mouz Siuhy situation is we will only ever get the perspective of truth from either party, and most likely only parts that make up the bigger picture. The objective truth and what factors contribute to the breakdown to force this decision will likely never be known to the public. The reality of this scenario is there was clearly a big enough of a rift or cause for the organisation to make a drastic change before one of the elite events of the year, because, yes, Sponge is right, all of this is happening before Katowice, not after, although I would argue there really isn't a convenient moment on the current calendar to make a roster change by design. Now we've created 2 seasons a year with majors at the end of them, and ultimately that's when you will go into the roster mania. It's kind of like football. You have a transfer window. That's when people make the moves. But certainly doing it before Katowice, one of the big ones, yeah, not great. And remember, at the start of the year, when you're coming out of a roster mania, this is when other teams are weak. Mouz's advantage was they hadn't made a roster move. This is when they could have gone from being, playoff aspirants to tournament winners. And yet, here we are. So I agree with Chad. It must absolutely be something chronic that couldn't be resolved by the organization, a la what happened in Heroic, where Stown and Yabi said, it's us or Cadian, and they shored up support from other teammates. So the organization basically said, look, Cadian, you've been a great servant to this organization, but we're picking them. And then they, of course, left to Astralis because it was all a work the whole time. Anyway, it doesn't seem like a good move to bench your IGL, replace him with a player on your team who has never done that job, and then have to play an event of Katowice caliber with a stand-in from your academy from the outside perspective. And that right there is why the juiciness of this situation is so sought after by the public, because there must be some element of drama or dysfunction that we never suspected. Steel, who obviously is going to be on the desk at Katowice. Great news. I hope he does more. He should. I'd love to have him on a PGL desk with me and roll back the years. That'd be cool. But anyway, he says, this feels like 2018 NA type shit to happen. And what Josh means by that is there was a lot of insane backstabbery, fuckery, and just open American players would leverage their power, essentially, to get rid of players they didn't want to play with. Never forget, Siuhy was already doing that with Cloud9, with Skadoodle, even as they won a major. And Skadoodle got the MVP for his final performance. Siuhy didn't want to play with him anymore. And so we've seen this, obviously, with Stanislaw in Team Liquid and him saying it's him or me about the coach and the org picking the coach and him ending up kind of in the wilderness for a while. So, Josh knows what he's talking about. NA in particular does have some real snaky fucking activities going on out there. Anyway, the same shit we experienced way back when, I'm sure still exists these days. You can try and professionalize all different facets, but at the end of the day, this is young adults in a hyper-competitive environment trying to communicate, and it's always going to have certain pitfalls. So, done. I agree. People will want to get to the bottom of this. We won't know for a couple of years, but it will come out. Somebody will end up talking about it eventually. And so, look, we get to the replacement. Now, we've already seen Vitality. They had a bit of a rough one today. I maintain letting Spinks go. Again, that has to be a vibes move because I think he's a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for. I think he's a really, really talented player. And so, this is just crazy that he's ended up on Mouse. We were worried about he might not end up on anywhere at all. We didn't know where he was going to go. It looked like Rostermania had passed him by. This craziness with Siuhy has created an opening, which obviously has worked to Spinks' advantage theoretically. I think coming into the roster, their problem is not going to be firepower because you've got Torji. He was a top 20 player this year. Spoiler, he shouldn't have been. Nuts should have had his spot. But he was a top 20 player this year. He's their most improved player when they get to the arena stages. Obviously, Zerjan, top 20 player, super consistent. Jimmy, top 20 player, super consistent. Like one of the star players in the anchor role. And then obviously we've got Brolan, totally inexperienced IGL, but a decent player. And then Spinks comes in. It's kind of like, compared to the other people on the roster, I mean, like, it's mad to think how young this Mouse Sports team is. Compared to everyone else on the roster, he's the tenured veteran at 24, and obviously plays to an unbelievably high level, plays, very aggressive, great numbers. So, I mean, I look at the balance of the team, with the exception of having a super competent IGL, they've pretty much got everything you would want, and it's just a shame that ultimately, I feel if Spinks had come in for Brolan, that's the better move. And that would have really excited me. That would have made me think, oh, wow, shit. Mouse have maybe gained that extra 5% they needed to really challenge people for tournaments. That would have just been a move that would have made logical sense in multiple ways. All due respect to Brolan, I think Spinks is the better player. And so it's kind of weird. We've seen this happen a lot during this roster mania, where teams have made roster moves and they've brought in the right player, but they've replaced the right player. They've replaced the wrong player with the right player, if you see what I mean. It's like there was a right player to kick and a right player to get. They get the right player, and then, okay, so you replace this guy. No, you don't. It's like Liquid missing out on a IGL when, I mean, look, I think best will in the world. Even the most ardent JKS fan, the penny is starting to drop now. You should have got an IGL, took the responsibility off Twists. Now we got a lineup again. But, it's weird. People are just kind of grabbing what they can, I think, because they feel like everyone else has been leveling up. Falcons is coming, whether you like it or not. Certainly not with that roster, but eventually they are going to get there. They're going to get the team they want. They're going to get the super team. So it's kind of crazy. Just while we're here as well, because the Spinks move in and of itself is kind of confusing. Spinks did come out and say now, there were a lot of rumors going around about why Spinks left Vitality. And the rumors were that it was either Apex or Mezzi. Right? And lots of people were saying he didn't want to play with Mezzi anymore. He tweeted out saying, look, I don't usually comment on rumors, but I want to clarify this. I never had any problems with Mezzi. I love this guy outside and inside the server, and it was always a pleasure. So now what he's done there is, he's sent, whether he knows it or not, this is the problem with Pierre. You see, you should have just said, I don't have a problem with any of my teammates. It was never about that, right? Then it would have been fine. Everyone would have suspected you were lying, but at least you addressed the elephant in the room. Now by saying I never had a problem with Mezzi, everyone goes, oh, so it was Apex. You had a problem with Apex the whole time. So it's wild, absolutely wild that you phrased the statement that way. But whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna have to wait and see how Mouz do, because obviously Katowice is a write-off now. They're bringing in Zelex, this 16-year-old Hungarian who isn't very good. So they're not going to do anything in Katowice, although last time I said that, it was about Siuhy 2K, and they ended up winning Dallas, didn't they? Even though Siuhy 2K played a 0.8 rating, and everyone pretended that was actually good because he has aura and vibes. So what do I know? Maybe Zelex is going to play a fucking 0.69 rating in the Mouse team. They're going to win the whole event, and numbers don't mean anything, apparently. So maybe, but when we're going to get to see them will be the event I'll be hosting, which will be PGL Cluj-Napoca, which starts on Valentine's Day, appropriately for a lonely incel. so that's good. Looking forward to that. But yeah, that's when we'll get to see the real time and the real Mouse. That's when we're going to get to see the real manifestation of the team. And so I'm about it. I'll give it a chance. But absolutely, in terms of the move, I just don't. I'm not vibing with it. I don't think you can get away with removing a competent IGL in this particular meta at this particular time. I think more so now than ever, IGLs are actually worth their weight in gold, and there's not a lot of them out there, and certainly not a lot of them that are capable of having results with junior players. Siuhy has proven he can do that, and so then the question has to be, who is going to get Siuhy? Because Siuhy on a bench is madness. It's madness. He cannot be sat out for the entire season. I don't know if Mouse will want to sell him, because they must know on some level, the organization, wherever he goes, he's going to go to one of your opponents and he's going to level them up. My first thoughts are G2. G2 have already talked about this guy. They're in a transition period anyway. Heavy God and Malbs are popping off. Everything seems to be good. So you've got Munacy there. Munacy is someone that I think could vibe well with Siuhy. He seems to, like tactical IGLs. So yeah, fuck it. G2 have to pick up the phone and get Siuhy, right? Absolutely. If they don't, then the next one is probably Liquid. I would say, sure. It makes sense that Liquid can finally do it. They cut JKS. They get Siuhy. Twists goes back to just being a player. Siuhy comes in. My worry about that move is I don't know if Naf and Twists would respect Siuhy and his style, and that's what you need. You need their buy-in. They have to be on your side if you're going to last at Liquid. The other option for me is FaZe, and I'll explain why. I already strongly suspect it's over for FaZe, in the sense that I have seen Elise saying some stuff, and I'm like, oh, bro, just don't, just please, just listen to Carrigan, just follow the system. But like Elise did some interview where he was going, oh yeah, I'm already going to start telling everybody this is how you communicate in game, because there was a lot of communications that were just completely superfluous, and I'm like, brother, you played in a team where every time we listened to comms, it was, he's lit, peek with me, why didn't you peek with me? Like, those were the comms that you were used to when you were playing in NA. So I can't imagine the comms are worse in FaZe than anything you've played in before. And yet he's already talking about making the fucking changes and making the improvements. It's just ridiculous. And I'm like, my guy, that's one of Carrigan's strengths. There's no way. So I think what could end up happening is Carrigan might get to the end of this season, not the end of the year, and just be like, actually, I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore. This is a fucking head wreck. And in which case, here is the heir apparent. Go and get Siuhy. Obviously, that's one of those moves, though. That would require Siuhy to sit on the bench for months and Carrigan to get sick of a leash. And I'm obviously doing a lot of assumptions there based on interviews, what I'm trying to intuit. Maybe Carrigan is just unflappable like that. Maybe he even goes, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we could communicate more effectively. American. So who knows? But yeah, Carrigan can move into a coaching role, bring Siuhy in. It'd be all nice and neat. It would keep FaZe relevant. There'd be continuity there. So, you know, there's definitely options. G2 is the one that is screaming from the rooftops for me, in the same way that when I said Elise to FaZe is just a no-brainer and then it happened, Siuhy to G2 is a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. I know Heavy God's been in the interview saying Taz and Snacks don't get enough love, actually. People underrate them. They don't know what they do. Yeah, I get it. But Siuhy is an upgrade in every way for Snacks. I think he might even be a better player. Right? I think he might just be a better player as well, as a much better IGL. And Snacks was always one of those weird pickups that never really made a lot of sense. As I said on the video when the move happened, I wasn't a fan. People were like posting, what about today, dickhead? Yeah, what about today? Like, what have G2 done in that era? This is an opportunity to pick up a young, competent, experienced IGL who's already won trophies, already won S-tier trophies, and be part of G2 for 5-6 years to come. Like, you can do that now. You can have that now. The one thing you will always have is the IGL. No more hooksies. Never need to go back to those dark times. So, if I'm G2, that's absolutely what I do. That's just 100% the move. I might even propose it, because even though it's going to be a League of Legends podcast, we're doing a Four Horsemen on Tuesday. I thought it was this Tuesday. It's actually next Tuesday. So we're doing a Four Horsemen episode on Tuesday. I don't know if it'll be live or pre-recorded, but we're doing this Four Horsemen episode, and our guest is I believe, going to be the CEO of G2. And when he's there, we're going to be talking about League. It's going to be like the end of the end of the year in League. But I'll just say to him, look, by the way, get Siuhy. Like, spend some fucking money, do yourself a favour and get Siuhy. I don't give a fuck about League. Don't give a fuck about your League team. But go and get Siuhy. So we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, at some point, he is going to get roasted because he's the CEO of G2. He was essentially a plant from Riot after the whole Carlos incident. So we'll wait and see. So Siuhy has got to get on a team, and soon. There are a number of teams that he could go to immediately, and they should immediately make the move, and that is certainly G2, certainly Liquid, and both of those teams become so relevant immediately for doing that move. Meanwhile, Brollan is certainly in a dilly of a pickle. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm just quoting Ned Flanders, but what do I mean? Well, the dilly of a pickle is that if he is now the IGL and he underperforms as players who become IGL just do, they stop fragging because they have to call, they have to micro people, they have to concentrate on a lot more than just their own game and their crosshair, so you get this dip in your own statistics. If he starts to underperform and the rest of his teammates aren't vibing with what he's doing and don't pick up the slack, and they start losing games, and let's say Mouz regress and go backwards when they were just making enough forward momentum to call it progress, as collectively they just put that whole bedroom, only perform in the bedroom, only perform in the studio, they just put all of that behind them, then yeah, he conceivably could get cut when the next Roster Mania comes around. And put it this way, I don't know where Brollan would go after Mouz. What do I mean by that? There's no naturally Swedish teams he would immediately go into. He doesn't have a big enough name or enough firepower to justify going onto one of the big teams as a replacement for somebody. You know, it just isn't going to work. I mean, if Rain ever retired, again, maybe you could go to FaZe. I don't know, but it would be tough for him. So a lot of pressure on his young shoulders. And as I said, you've got to remember, I know we've been talking about Brollan since he was like 16, 17. He's only 22 now. He's only 22 now. But there isn't NIP isn't a Swedish roster anymore. Fnatic aren't a Swedish roster anymore. I don't think he would want to go to either of those orgs. I mean, obviously, for obvious reasons, having had previous. So, I don't know. It's a lot of pressure to put on him. I'm just glad we get to see Spinks. The good news about this, the thumbs up part of the equation, as opposed to the Overwatch fart noises, is at least we get to see Spinks play. It would have been criminal for Spinks to be sat on a bench for 6 months. He's way too good for that. And I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of what happened in Vitality, which is another interesting component to this. The fact that Spinks has joined Mouz, it's definitely not his first choice. It's definitely not the team he would have liked to have been at. He himself could have been on a Liquid instead of Nerds maybe, or he himself could have been on a G2. Who knows? But ultimately, he's on Mouz. That's probably like his third, fourth pick, saying it politely. And ultimately, I think he's going to be just out of his world, cracked on this team. I really think he's going to immediately emerge as a star player on this roster. So we shall see. But overall, a strange move. Not one that I vibe with at all. But the good news for G2 fans is it could be the upgrade you've been looking for. These could be the Falcon-esque dominoes. Speaking of which, what if Falcon swooped in for him? See what I've done with the term swoop there? I'm a journalist. Right? I mean, Falcons could swoop in for him, bring him in, just get rid of Kixan already. I mean, that would be ironic. I don't know. But, yeah, maybe. I just think he's so good that Siuhy should be now the major target for every org that believes they don't necessarily have a long-term IGL solution. He should walk into another team, and it should be quick.